the flower of northern Nemea, 200 lords and ladies, filled the great hall of Ostergoth Keep. The centerpiece of the evening was an aged hillman, stripped to the waist and bound to a wooden frame. Livid welts oozing blood crisscrossed his shoulders and back. While Duke Reinhard's guests gorged on fine victuals, his torturer performed for their entertainment. At the same time, a killer stalked in the shadows. Hidden within the gloom shrouding the hall's lofty ceiling, he crept across the rafters to the flicker of the torch fires below, as unseen as the wind, silent as death itself. The amused Duke spilled wine down his ermine-lined robes and spoiled the yellow dress of the pale, shuddering girl on his lap. Caim's gloved hands curled into fists. It was time to go to work. He dropped down to an empty balcony outthrust from the stone wall. Crouched behind the railing, he unslung a satchel from his shoulder and took out its contents. With sure movements, he assembled a powerful bow made from 2 curved shafts of laminated horn. He opened a lacquered case and took out 3 arrows. Each projectile ended in brilliant indigo fletching, the design favored by the hill tribes of eastern Ostergoth, as requested by the client. Caim fit an arrow to the string and lifted the bow. He sighted along the shaft. An uneasy sensation rumbled in the pit of his stomach. Nerves. He adjusted his aim to allow for distance and declination. The girl in the yellow dress managed to escape the Duke's lewd embrace, at least for the moment.
Don't worry, honey. He won't ever bother you again.
Just as he was about to shoot, his target leaned over to chortle into the ear of a lovely noblewoman beside him. Caim held his breath and counted by the slow, measured rhythm of his pulse. Any moment now, the Duke would sit up and present the perfect target. A feathery tickle caressed Caim's shoulders. Not taking his eyes off the Duke, Caim caught a glimpse of silver.
Hello, lover.
Ghostly fingers tickled Caim's waist, but his gaze never left the target.
Hello, Kit.
Putting another notch in your belt, I see?
It didn't matter that no one else could hear her. She was throwing off his cadence.
I'm busy. Go find a nest of bunnies to play with until I'm done here.
Kit pressed her face against his cheek to peer down the arrow shaft. Although he couldn't exactly feel her, tiny itches radiated everywhere she touched his skin. A strand of her silver hair fell across his left eye. Caim resisted the urge to blow it away, knowing it wouldn't do any good.
Bunnies live in holes, not nests, and you're aiming too low.
Leave me alone. I've got the shot.
You're going to miss his neck by half a foot?
Caim ground his teeth as the Duke turned away from the noblewoman to slap the back of Lyram Cornfelsh of the Cornfelsh Merchant Syndicate. The syndicate was backing Duke Reinhard to the hilt, hoping to ride his rise to power all the way to the inner sanctums of the capital.
I'm aiming for his heart. Now leave me alone for a minute.
Kit hopped up on the banister, balancing on her bare toes as light as a butterfly. Short for a human woman, she possessed a figure out of any man's fantasies. Tiny-waisted yet buxom, she had creamy skin with a faint olive sheen. The dress she wore, tight clinging with an absurdly short skirt, barely left anything to the imagination. Caim supposed it made no difference, since no one could see her but him.
What if he's wearing a coat of mail under that atrocious shirt?
The arrowhead is piled for penetration. Anyway, he doesn't wear armor. He detests the weight of it. That's why he surrounds himself with so many soldiers.
Caim rechecked his aim anyway. He wished the Duke would sit up straight. His fingers were getting numb. Kit spun around and sat on the narrow railing.
For all the good they'll do him. Are you going to finish this anytime soon?
Just a moment.
The Duke leaned back in his chair, his shoulders framed by the wide oaken back. Caim released the bowstring. The target glanced upward. Wine ran down Reinhard's blubbery chins as their gazes met. It was a perfect shot, a sure kill. But just before it struck, the torchlight flickered. Caim's neck hairs tingled at the sight of Lyram Cornfelsh, sprawled in front of the Duke. The arrow's blue feathers quivered above the emerald brooch nestled in the hollow of his throat. Guests bolted from their seats, all except for Cornfelsh, who they left lying across the high table like an overstuffed ham. The Duke's soldiers rushed to surround him. Caim grabbed the other arrows and fired in rapid succession. The first caught a bodyguard through the left eye. The second penetrated the boss of a soldier's shield and through the forearm holding it, but the Duke remained unscathed. Caim tossed the bow aside and raced down the balcony. Kit skipped along the railing beside him.
I told you the shot was off. You do have a contingency plan, right?
Caim clenched his jaws tight together. The only thing worse than making a grand mess of a job was doing it in front of Kit. Now he had to get down and dirty. He reached behind his back and drew a pair of sweet knives. 18 inches of single-edged steel gleamed in the torchlight. A sentry appeared at the end of the catwalk. Caim flowed past him, close enough to smell the wine on the man's breath, and the sentry stumbled against the wall, a bloody gash across his throat. On the floor below, the Duke was ushered by his bodyguards through a door at the back of the hall. Caim vaulted over the railing, jumping right through Kit. For a moment, as their bodies merged, he was covered from head to foot by tingling goosebumps. As he landed on the central trestle, a thrown spear flashed just inches in front of his face. Flagons and dinnerware went flying as he dashed down the polished length of the table. Kit floated above his head.
He's getting away!
Then how about you go follow him?
She sped off. Caim kicked open the door. The Duke would be heading to his quarters on the top floor of the dungeon, where he could hole up until reinforcements arrived. If that happened, Caim was well and truly screwed. But he had never failed to complete an assignment before. He didn't plan to start now. The corridor beyond was unlit. He started inside, but a nagging sense of caution made him pause. That hesitation saved his life, as a sword blade swept through the empty space where his neck would have been. Caim ducked and jabbed with both knives. His left-hand suit cut through a colorful surcoat and got caught in the links of the hidden guardsman's mail underneath. But the right-hand blade found a gap in the armor. Caim jerked his knives free and swept down the hallway. A single staircase led to the higher levels. The steps spiraled clockwise around a thick stone newel post. As he came around the first landing, a quarrel zipped past. Caim threw himself against the wall. From somewhere above, he could hear the sound of a hand crank rearming the crossbow. Caim darted up the steps as fast as his legs would propel him. If there was a second archer lying in wait, he would be dead before he knew it. Fortunately, a lone crossbowman stood on the landing above. The soldier dropped the crossbow and grabbed for his sword, but Caim cut him down before he freed the weapon. Caim crept up the last flight of stairs to the keep's highest level. The upper landing was empty. Candles dripping wax from brass sconces on the wall illuminated a juncture of two hallways. He put his back to the cool stone and peered around the corner into the corridor that led to the master suite. So far, the Duke had shown an exceptional affinity for sacrificing his men to preserve his own hide. 2 bodyguards were down, 2 more to go. Decent odds. Caim settled down the hallway. The door to Reinhard's suite was reinforced with thick iron bands. It would be barred from the inside. Nothing short of an axe would get through the door, but he had another idea. Caim was moving toward a shuttered window on the side of the hallway when Kit's head and one shapely shoulder poked through the door.
You'd better hurry. He's packing up to run.
A cool breeze ruffled Caim's hood as he swung open the shutters. A 60-foot drop yawned on the other side.
He doesn't have anywhere to go.
Not quite. There's a hidden passage that leads outside the grounds.
Damn it! Why didn't you mention that earlier?
How was I supposed to know it was there? It's pretty well hidden, behind a wardrobe case.
Caim swung a leg over the sill. Time was running out. If the Duke got outside the compound, he would be near impossible to catch.
Keep watching that secret tunnel, kid. Follow Reinhard if he makes it outside. I'll catch up.
Will do.
She vanished back inside the chamber. Caim still didn't know what had gone wrong in the Great Hall. The shot had been set up perfectly. Nothing he could do about it now except to correct his mistake and get out fast. As he climbed out onto the sill, he spotted the outline of another window on the same level, 30 paces away. Pale light flickered from within. Exit scenarios played through Caim's mind as he ran his fingers over the outer wall. Once the job was finished, he could drop down to the keep's courtyard to make his escape, or he could use the Duke's secret tunnel. Either plan held its own set of risks. He had hoped to be gone by now. Every passing minute reduced his chances for success. The broad ashlar blocks of the keep's outer shell provided strong protection against siege weapons, but their wide seams made good perches for climbing. Without stopping to consider the prudence of his actions, he found a crevice in the wall and grabbed hold. He hated rushing a job, but he was running out of options at this point. He focused on his holds. As he reached a point halfway between the windows, a prickling itched down his spine. He froze, clinging to the sheer stone face. Something drew his gaze toward the heavens. A thick blanket of clouds veiled the night sky. The light of torches from the courtyard below flickered upon the keep's crenellations. He saw nothing at first. Then, something moved among the battlements. Caim held his breath as a silhouette passed above him, a sinuous shape gliding through the dark. For one terrible moment he thought it had seen him, but then it was gone. Caim waited several heartbeats before he dared to breathe again. What was going on? He didn't have time to waste. He tried to put the specter out of his mind. Seconds later, he was at the window. The clear glass casement didn't open silently, but no one inside noticed. The window led into the master bedchamber. Beyond it, Caim could see entrances to other rooms and the stout door leading to the hallway he had vacated minutes before. Both bodyguards stood at the barred door, swords out, watching the portal as if expecting Caim to burst through at any moment. The Duke hunched over a heavy trunk.
Othir! Leave off that damn door and help me!
One of the bodyguards turned around as Caim crawled through the window. The guard opened his mouth to shout a warning, but never got the chance. The smooth handle of Caim's suite protruded from his throat.
What?
Caim drew his other knife and crossed the room just as the second bodyguard turned. As the man raised his sword arm to strike, Caim lunged in close and drove his weapon full length into the joint under the man's armpit.
Caim, look out!
Kit's shout made Caim turn, knees bent, with his knife at the ready. From this vantage, he could see the wardrobe Kit had mentioned. It was pulled aside, and a black tunnel mouth yawned in the wall beyond. A young man in the Duke's livery with fair hair and a short goatee emerged, with a bared arming sword in his hand. Caim pivoted out of the path of the falling sword and thrust his knife into his opponent's side. The Duke cringed beside a massive four-post bed.
Please. I'll give you anything you want.
Yes, you will.
Caim left the body stretched out on the bed, with a hole carved into the bloody chest. He hadn't been able to take out Reinhardt in front of his dinner guests. Caim's clients would have to be satisfied with butchery. The message was sent. He didn't expect the Duke's men to trail him for long. With their liege dead, they would be more concerned with finding and protecting Reinhardt's heir. By all accounts, young Lord Robert was a decent boy, a far cry from his monstrous father. The duchy would be a better place. Caim's gaze fell on the young man sprawled at the tunnel entrance. He had never set eyes on Lord Robert, but he had a reliable description. 22 years old, light brown hair with a wisp of a beard, and blue eyes.
Oh, hell's breath.
The youth on the floor matched the description too closely to be a coincidence. So much for leaving these lands in the care of a kinder, more tolerant liege.
You're going to get some company very soon.
Caim considered the open window.
How many?
More than you can handle, believe me.
I do. What about outside?
All those pretty ladies and gentlemen have stirred up quite a commotion in the yard. Every exit is sealed, and extra men have been put on the walls. Search parties are scouring the grounds.
In the tunnel?
Lots of stairs, and the rest of the Duke's bodyguards wait at the other end. They might not be happy to see you come out before their boss.
Nothing was going his way tonight. He was going to have to use his last option. By the amused expression on her face, Kit knew it too. He hated admitting she was right, but he'd probably hate dying even more. He went around the room snuffing candles and lamp wicks to plunge the chamber into darkness, except for a single lantern resting beside the tunnel mouth. He ignored the Duke's traveling trunk and the sacks spilled on the floor. Just one of those purses would set him up for a year, but he was an assassin, not a thief.
You better hurry.
Caim tried to ignore her as he pressed his back against a wall in the darkest part of the room. There amid the shadows, he closed his eyes and shut out the outside world. He focused on the sliver of fear quivering at the center of his core. Fear was the key. It was always there, hidden beneath layers of denial and repression. Caim hated this. He had to tap into that feeling, allow it to possess him. At first, he didn't think he could. There were too many distractions. The pain was too far removed. But then, a memory seized hold of him. It was an old memory, full of pain. Raging flames painted the night sky in hues of orange and gold and threw shadows across the yard of the villa where the tall bodies sprawled. There was blood everywhere, pooled in the gravel, splattered across the face of the man kneeling in the center of the yard, running down his chest in a great black river.
Father.
Caim opened his eyes as the dark came alive. It gathered around him like a cloak. By the time the guards battered down the door, he was hidden within its inky folds. Just another shadow.
Prophet's blood.
It's the Duke.
The soldiers flitted about like bees from a jostled hive. None of them detected the shade that glided out the door and down the stairs. A quarter mile away from the stronghold, Caim released the cloying darkness. He grabbed the trunk of a sapling to hold himself upright as a wave of disorientation overloaded his senses. The darkness swam before his eyes in 1,000 shades of gray and black. Something lurked in the distance, just beyond the limit of his vision. He didn't know how he summoned the shadows. The power had been with him for as long as he could remember, lurking within him, threatening to erupt whenever he was frightened or angry. He had learned to control those feelings over the years, but he never got used to it. After a minute, the weakness passed, and the normality of the night returned. Caim resumed his trek through the fog-strewn moor. Overhead, a lone star pierced the cloud cover. Like a man grasping a lifeline, he stumbled toward it, following its shimmer through the gloom.